a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Speaking of Patreon, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon, so a massive shout out of appreciation to Abraham Mohammed, Abd Adam, Adrian Quintana, Alistair Main, Blue Ridge Ranger, Burn Fat Till My Stomach Is As Flat As The Earth, Chow Young Cat, Chris Hillman, Dank, Dave Rakia Gafford, David Robinson, David Wayne Foster, Daz Studio 68, Edwin Johnson, Erwin Jonasons, Felix Hung, Fireball X, God Rockin, Henrik 86, Joshua Balsimo, Kirsten Smith, Liam Nedrick, Life is Short, Maria Neelands, Matt, Missouri Bear, NA Literalist, Nagara, Nathan Thompson, Naibai, Skeptic 936, Rob H, Steve ALM, Texas Mike, The Real Gabster, Tina Baker, Unbelievable Productions, and Windrider. So a massive shout out, thanks and appreciation to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now we are joined by a few people in G+, together with a whole bunch of people in Discord, so I'll leave you with their dulcet tones as I set up for today's live show.
Yeah, I definitely know about experiencing it. I used to be a bigger UFO geek than Tyler from Secure Team 10, man, and it was so hard for me to finally give up outer space, but you know, facts are facts, and I couldn't lie to myself, so here I am.
That's right.
Outer space. That sounds funny now.
It does. It sounds fucking dumb.
Inner
Yeah.
Space was a good movie. Martin Short.
Well, think about what you're dealing with. They manipulate the weather right in front of your nose, and people can't catch on to it. It's like, what the fuck? The Earth's flat. That's obvious. Spring, skies. That's obvious. And people won't research it. It's like, what the fuck?
Well, like with my family, they all don't doubt any of these things. They just keep living the way they're living. They just keep reacting to a lot of what's being said. And then, you know, me in the corner, looking at me in the corner, oh yeah, we know it's fake. We know it's just, it's such a weird.
Again, the programming, I'm one of those that also hasn't watched TV in a long time, since the 90s. And the last little while before the lockdown, I started going to the bars a bit too regularly, and that's the only time I see the TV. And just watching that TV and the commercials and the things on it, and the sports announcers, I could feel myself getting lulled back into that programming kind of thing, a weird, creepy way. It's like, oh my goodness, this programming is really powerful, overpowering.
Totally, yeah. You'll hear something out of the corner of your ear. Let's say, someone else in the house is watching the TV, and you get that little clenched feeling. Wait, it's not real.
Hey, there was an old movie on from 1943. And the beginning of the movie, there was a globe on it with a tower on top of it. That was way before the moon landing, supposed. I was like, wow, they were programming way back when.
Look at what the first movie ever made was, wasn't it? It was a movie about the moon, about going to it.
That was one of the first movies.
Yeah, wasn't it? You know the one I'm talking about, the black and white with that rocket that lands in the moon's eye.
Yeah, I remember some of that footage. Yeah,
The
it was
day,
shown.
the day the Earth stood still. That was 1950 something. I can't remember. That was a great big deal, boy.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the not the movie itself, the beginning of the movie when it starts. You see a
Like the
big globe,
Universal logo. He's saying
right?
basically,
Something
right?
like that. Yep, exactly. Wow, this is 1943.
There's that. It reminds me of that saying, like, because it's all like gradual, this programming. And there was that saying, like, if your parents are ignorant, then you're born to like ignorant parents in an ignorant society. Then like you're ignorant in a sense, or I forget how that quote goes. Maybe I should look it up.
Yeah, speaking of ignorant, I wish I could find the clip, but there's this. I can't even think of her name. But you know what? I'm just not even gonna go. I'm gonna stop while I'm ahead.
All right, it's something about ignorance being the norm. Let me look it up quickly. Because I butchered that quote and I don't like that. Come on, where is it?
The smartest are the stupidest.
I found it. If a man is born ignorant to ignorant parents that are ignorant, and then society that is ignorant lives a life of ignorance, and eventually dies in ignorance, ignorance is the norm.
Makes
Thus,
sense.
indoctrination can be called education, hypnotism can be called entertainment, criminals can be called leaders, and lies can be called truth, because his mind was never truly his own. Some dude, Gavin Nascimento, said that or something, if this quote is right, or source is right. Yeah, I'm gonna switch to Google Hangouts.
It looks like Nathan was flashing.
Yeah, it sounds like 10th Man. Yeah, I see 10th Man's in there.
How you doing?
Hey, Tim.
10th Man.
Something.
That's why if a system is really well rigged, you can break out of the norm in good ways, innovation, break out of the way that everybody tends to do things in a tribe or in a family. Let the system kind of take care of itself if the system's functional, that is.
Also, there's the system mentality in the people who think they've broken free. In other words, I saw a video by you this morning, for example, where he's got a pastor who's going up to a big group of police officers and saying, "You're not social distancing." And my comment to you was, why are you promoting some normie in enforcing the tyrannous rules that we're now under? Why is that being promoted? Is it a good thing that some random Joe is saying, "Oi, you're not following the rules that we all hate"?
And who's enforcing the norms?
The normies.
Because
The normies.
Yeah. Yep.
Because if the system was functional, people would see in the system that really people aren't social distancing at all. That it's making really no difference at all if they're really looking at the parts of the system that are functional. But the people that are pushing the system want people to comply. So they're going to emphasize the compliance rather than saying, hey, people really aren't social distancing. And there's something up with this germ theory. And so the system is working, but people aren't looking at the functional parts of the system. They're cherry picking what they want to focus on. And that's where the problem is.
You're right, but that's not really what I meant. What I meant was, when you have people who like approach us on the other side of this flat Earth argument and say, "What's your explanation for X, Y, and Z?" and you go, "I don't have an explanation for that. I don't know." Well, there's a danger to fall into the same sort of, we need a new model, we need a new system, we need a new plan for all of us together. When, for me personally, it's like the newly acquired information that I have isn't necessarily, to me personally, useful to disseminating to some unseen mass of people that I don't know. Now, don't get me wrong, I've got a YouTube audience, but that isn't necessarily me saying, I want you to all follow my way of thinking. In fact, I say quite the opposite. If you want to still believe in a ball after you leave this show, more power to you, I don't care. But the mentality of most people is to say, we need to change the system. It's like, no, you need to leave the system and never look back. That's my attitude.
Sounds like Spurs.
Well, when people ask
I-
for quote unquote a model, they ask for testable elements. You know, the flatness of the land, the dome, the Antarctic ice ring. They want to see what they can test and verify in this quote unquote, model. What elements are testable that could lead toward the flat Earth and help people believe? Because people are rational.
Antarctic ice ring?
Well,
What's
they're
that?
asking us
Yeah.
what we've tested and what we've verified. And if we demonstrate it to them satisfactorily, what they'll understand, believe, and follow our way of thinking. Well, why would you be concerned with that approach? Why? I don't care if the guy in the audience leaves thinking it's a globe still. I don't care. You know, it's not my journey that he's on. He's on his journey. And more power to you. You know, if your journey takes you into a religious faith of sphere, then more power to you. But the mentality of this having a system, having everybody believing the same thing, having everybody understanding what is real and what isn't real, well, you're never going to achieve that for a start. This current situation should tell you that. The normies are normies, and they'll reinforce the rules if they like them or not. Because they see they're like crabs in a bucket. That crab's almost getting out of this horrible bucket. Let's grab it by the legs and pull it back in again.
Nathan,
Well, I mean, it's
hang
what was
on,
that?
hang on. Nathan, why does science even have models? Why can't they just show it in reality?
You have models when there's a limitation on your hypothesis, when you can't validate it empirically. So you come up with a model,
Exactly.
just so story.
Exactly. So, back to some of the writings of Andrew Thomas Young about refraction. He says, if you read this far without jumping ahead to the refraction page, please go there now. It explains how refraction works and how atmospheric refraction can be calculated very accurately given a definite atmospheric model. So they have to reverse engineer everything to fit a globe, and since reality won't let them do it, they have to go to models.
Yeah.
So back to Lemon Bird, is it what he was saying?
I want to
If
hear
it's not
about
in
this Antarctic
reality,
ice ring.
I was just saying.
Neil, we could hear you talking. Anyway,
I was just
no,
saying a model
I'm
helps
just
guide
saying if it's. Hang on, Lemon Bird. Let me pose the question to you properly. So if it's in reality, you don't need a model, but because it can't be seen or understood based on the reality view, they go make a model. Now, what if the model they make is to fit something that's not real, like a globe? Because you got other things that prove we're not on the globe. So why do they still hold on to their globe when the other things of reality prove we're not on the globe, like a lack of a geometric horizon? Physical,
Well,
that is.
a model does help guide exploration, but the main thing is reality, as you say. The only thing is you're exploring, say, this dome or the whole length of our system, and say you die, and you only get to explore part of it. You know, unless you get to explore every inch of it, you're going to need a model to put the pieces together. The lack of curvature, say, a firmament dome, the Antarctic ice ring, the North Pole in the center. You're going to eventually need, quote unquote, a model that brings all these elements together and
You
at
got.
least
Hang
on some
on.
level guides exploration.
Hang on. You missed the whole question. Talked about some absurdity of a model. if you don't have a physical geometric horizon, you can't use the model that you're using, correct?
The horizon is flat.
Are you listening? You're saying you need a model to further investigate blah, blah, blah. But if there is no physical geometric horizon, then the model they're using is blah, blah, blah wrong. But they
Yeah.
continue to use
So
it.
we're going to need something to replace it.
Why?
Oh, gosh, this is difficult to
Because
talk to.
logical thinking people need something for their brain to chew on. Their brain isn't just going to go to a void.
That's what
If
I'm
there's
talking
no
about.
model for their brain to work with, their brain goes crazy.
That's what I'm talking about. So you're worried about the illogical normies and their lack of ability to actually process this stuff and giving them to in a digestible format so that they can accept and understand what you understand. Why?
It's illogical for a person to go from an option, no matter how bad, to no option on the normie side. They need to have something to jump ship for.
Oh,
Otherwise, they're
they
not gonna jump
need.
ship.
So you know what they need, do you? That's interesting.
I
Maybe you
used to
should
be
be the
one
new
of them.
leader. Do you see what I'm driving at, Lemonbird? You've arbitrarily decided that you know what's best for these normies and how they're going to know what's what. Well, what's to say that the original bullshit that we have in place now was just some dude at the beginning of it going, these people really need to understand how we're on a sphere. Let's figure out a way of making them understand.
Logical people aren't going to jump ship for nothing. You need to offer them another option. Otherwise, they're not going to jump ship in some cases.
Why do you want them to jump ship? Why do you care?
Otherwise, they'll just hold on to the globe like a life raft.
Yeah, you keep talking about this ethereal they. Who are these they? And why do you care so much about
The
them?
normies.
Why do you care about the normies?
I used to be one of them.
You used to be, but your journey deviated at some point, right?
I saw the other options that were out there.
But you saw them with your eyes and your processing and your cognition, and you want to give that to others and you can't. I'm glad there was a stony silence. Most people don't realise this. The journey of discovery that you are on, your appreciation, isn't the same as your understanding. And all you're trying to give people, by the way you're just talking, is an understanding. And you can't give that to people. You know, an understanding is just somebody appreciating how you've described something and then accepting it. That's an understanding. You understand what I've explained? Yeah, I understand how you've explained it and what you've explained, and therefore it's real. I understand. Well, that's a big difference between you know, widening your eyes and going, wow, the world that I'm presented with isn't what I thought because of these reasons, as opposed to here's an explanation of how the world isn't what you thought it was. Really? The world isn't what I thought it was? Thank you for telling me, because I couldn't have done that on my own. They just won't do it, regardless if you tell them or not. So I just see it as a fruitless task.
Yeah. I mean, I think people, you know, without some sort of viable option will say, oh, the world doesn't, you know, isn't what we thought it was. Well, I don't have a viable option, so I'm going to go back to the globe, which, you know, at least gives me an option no matter how, you know, bad it is. It depends on, you know, the person you're dealing with. But I don't know. Different people react differently.
I'm not moaning at you in the same way as I'd pin on Spurs the fact that he's an evangelist for this subject. You know, he wants to convert the masses. And I don't think you're the same. You're just talking about how we communicate with people as opposed to you being on a religious path to converting the millions, right? I don't think you're the same as Spurs, Lemonbird. I'm just saying the way you're describing it, if I'm going to analyse it to the nth degree, I honestly think is fruitless. I think you can only come to this information by your own volition. And me phrasing things in the most concise way or unpacking what someone else has said that's wrong doesn't seem to change anybody's opinion, because that's all they're hanging on to. Their cognitive dissonance, as we described earlier, and their opinions and their religious faith. That's all they've got, and they don't care what we say. If anything, they'll look at what we say and try and unpick it and find nonsense within their own rhetoric that they can hold true to, even if it doesn't necessarily counteract what we've said. That's the path they're on. So trying to say, no, you're on the wrong path. You're trying to unpick something that's factually accurate, and you're like, yeah, but in my model, it's like, you're on a loser.
There's a obvious life experience we all have experienced up to now, no matter what your age. there's like-minded people that we hang around because there are common threads of interest. And when you take flat Earth and you want to go out to the masses, you're still going to run into the diversity of people not being like-minded with you on previous, topics before you even bring this topic up. And I've noticed that. I've noticed that I can come on this show and there's like-minded people on the flat Earth side, but there are differences even among us. But we agree on the flat Earth. Can you imagine that with the population in the world? How
They're
many
not like
hurdles there are?
but they're not like-minded. That's the point.
No, on this topic. Just
Yeah,
on this topic.
on this
Like you
topic.
and I are like-minded on this topic.
Yeah,
But we
and the
may
normies aren't.
we may like different, but we may like different foods, different drinks. We may not be like-minded in those areas, but we're not sitting here trying to change each other on those things.
No, but I'm just saying to have that attitude is just beyond normies, in my opinion. I just don't think it's capable. I don't think we are capable of converting normies to our way of thinking. Not our viewpoint on the world, not our ideas about the nature of reality, just the way we process things cognitively. We can't give that to somebody who's a normie. You just can't do it.
I 100% agree. That's why I say you can't push a rope. You have ears, you hear, eyes to see, you will see. You find them, you don't make them.
Well, this is the thing that I can't stand about the education system. It's like you're on your own generation after generation after generation to reformulate knowledge. There's no body of knowledge that builds itself in an institution where you don't have to reinvent the wheel over and over and over again. And us as flat earthers, we can help lubricate that process potentially for the people that are coming. They don't have to have it as hard as us. They don't have to pick out all these elements like we did so that, they can come to it, and have an easier time of it as opposed to having to reinvent the wheel over and over again. Because some people just don't have time for that, especially, I think a lot of the normies say this really doesn't work. Deep down inside, they know it doesn't work, but they don't know what other options are out there. And having a model helps anchor it back to reality. That way it can be tested, verified, potentially one day.
That's not going to change anything, Lemon Bird. Here's where I'm coming from with that statement. People are afraid to put their beliefs or statements on the line in public or in a small group because they're afraid of ridicule and other things like that. So we can give them all the proofs they want of flat Earth versus globe on this show. And then they're armed, ready to go. Now they're at their friend's birthday party with 30, 40 people. Are they going to bring up the subject? Or no, because see, the world's been programmed to ridicule anyone who says flat Earth. So it's an issue of their fear or no fear. Are they going to spread the truth as they know it, not caring what someone thinks, and risk being alienated? And on the drive home, every member of the other family is talking about him, and he knows that's going to happen. So he doesn't do it. So it's a fear thing.
Four minutes. We'll start live.
Yeah, I've had a few people already say through the grapevine, Panther's crazy. That guy, I'm never going to listen to him again. I like it. I like to find out who will stand up for what they believe, accept, research, willing to put their name on the line. I like those kind of people. So at the end of the day, since there's silence here, all we do is proclaim, right?
Proclaim?
Yeah, that's all we're doing is proclaiming a truth, willing to have a conversation if they're willing. And we're not in charge of what a person does with his or her life. They are.
It's kind of like the gospel. We like just preach the word, and God gives the increase.
It's human nature too. Try telling someone to do something, and immediately they want to fight you, right? So it's like, oh, that looks interesting. Can I have a bite of that food? Or that looks great. Can I drive that fast car? It's almost like it's got to come from them for it to be back and forth. Because if the minute you start telling people stuff, they get resistant. Being in sales, I used to walk in stores and the salesman who wasn't trained properly would just approach me real quick, real fast. And it's a put off because first of all, you don't know why I'm there. Maybe I'm just browsing. Maybe I'm going to buy something. You're not sure, but you want to make a commission. So the salesman who's only interested in the commission is fast to act. Whereas a seasoned trained salesperson is going to ask questions and be subtle about it. Like, look, if you need anything, I'm over here, but enjoy the inventory we have. And walk away. Now, I like that guy because that guy respected my time and space.
I was going to launch into a discussion about sales, but given that we've only got about 10 seconds before we go live, I don't think I will.
I'll buy it now.
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now, we are joined by Righteous Force and 10th Man, together with a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Hey.
Man, me and 10th always overtalk each other when we say good morning.
Hey. We're like-minded.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone in Discord.
Hello.
Morning.
Good morning. Any signs of a physical sphere edge horizon formerly known as Earth curve?
Not from Sacramento Airport. Or should I say, like Adam, not from Nottingham.
Any signs of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
Nope.
Just you
I
answering
like
these questions today. Take it, 10th man.
I guess so. I guess so. So bring it on. I don't feel any motion, no axial rotation of the Earth-based variety. I do feel motion in my car, or if I get on the carnival ride, however.
Any scientific evidence of gravity?
No scientific evidence of an effect that they've called gravity, so they could keep their nonsense going.
Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
Still waiting on Dr. Becky to respond, but I doubt she ever will. But the answer is no.
Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
Over there, as Arvin would say. Arvin, are you here?
Joined.
Yes, just came in.
Any evidence of the
Perfect
distance
timing.
to the sun? Arwen?
Hello,
Hello.
can you hear me?
We hear you. Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
Yes, it's over there.
Fabulous.
Or wait, the distance you say?
93.
No.
Heard some rumblings from Discord.
But I said 93 something.
About 93 million miles based on an R value. You'd need a bit of R for that.
Oh, that. Okay.
Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
Still digging.
Any
I
evidence?
think your intro animation is the best evidence to date, Nathan.
I missed the beginning bit. I'll talk through you. Sorry, Arwen. Say that again.
I think your
Still
intro
digging.
animation is the best evidence to date.
Yeah. That's a jolly good evidence right there. An animation of a molten iron core with Earth separating into. Not really evidence, but still. Nice intro. Shout out to Adam Meakin of Iron Realm Media. Any evidence of the R value, Earth radius?
Black Swan. Took care of that.
Hey, Paul. Hey, Paul.
Hey, sorry. How you guys doing?
Very well. Last but by no means least, any evidence that you can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container?
Nope. No possible way.
Radiant gravity.
All
Radius
good
gravity.
questions, all unanswered after how long? Over a year? Over 2 years now?
Did you say radius gravity, Arwen?
Gradient, then gravity.
Radiant gravity.
Gradient, gravity, space-time bending. That's the evidence.
That concludes the housekeeping. What's the name? Emma UK put out a clip, I think it was from Jose's channel, with Bev Try Thinking and Bob the Science Guy. He's talking about establishing level with a water level. And all Bob the Science Guy can do is insert the fundamentalist religious presupposition that it's automatically bending by presupposition. He's got no justifiable reason. And after about 2 or 3 minutes of Bev dragging him around by the short hairs saying, no, level's level. It's establishing a level plane. That's a geometric term. This is what it is. And you're just asserting that it's curve. And then he says, oh no, you're going to have a difference in terms of what the water levels are showing. In other words, fundamentally contradicting what a water level actually does. And then he says it's doing it because of gravity. You're like, oh my God, how many times? And then just by coincidence, somebody in Ballbusters put up, I might as well put it up. It's got a bit of swearing in it, but there we go.
Oh,
Evidence,
that's a good one.
motherfucker. Do you have any? Say gravity one more time.
Oh, it's brilliant. Love that one.
I just thought that was quite funny and appropriate. You got any evidence? No, but I've got this thing called gravity, and I'll assert it to force whenever needed. It'll force things to do things globy.
Yeah, but isn't it an effective strategy just to bring up gravity? Because by just saying that, they just bought the whole discussion another 5 minutes of you having to explain why gravity isn't what they think it is in order for them to presuppose that it could be a solution. So they just bought 5 minutes at least red herring time every
That's all they
time
can
just
do.
by saying gravity.
Yep, correct. Or angular momentum, or a whole number of buzzwords that they just throw in just to obfuscate you win. Normally they'll throw it in at the point that you've actually won.
So how do we get around that?
You unpack gravity, throw out a few George Musa or Brian Cox quotes. There's not really a force of gravity at all, Brian Cox. Gravity is not a force, George Musa. There's loads of them. Just dig out a couple and throw it back at them. Point out that it's pseudo-Ramonian force space, length, breadth, depth and time, and the bending of this concept won't give rise to any force.
Right. So that's why I said what I said. Gradient, gravity, space-time bending. That's the summary of the 10-minute debacle that breaks out every time somebody starts to say, yeah, the gas pressure and then on to gravity. It usually does go that direction, doesn't it?
Direction. Boom, boom.
Not that type of direction. No, the direction of the conversation. If you bring up gas pressure without a container, it's likely that the gradient will be brought up, and then it's realized, why do you bring it up? Well, because gravity is causing the situation. And then, so usually from gas pressure, it does go to gravity.
Well, if you think about the incoherency of the rhetoric, okay, we're supposedly spinning at 1,000 miles an hour at the equator. The atmosphere is in lockstep with the spin, but the centrifugal forces don't even sling the air off of the so-called spinning globe either. You see where I'm going with that? And also, the gravity gets weaker as you get higher. So if a particle gets further and further away, then the less the gravitational force is applied. So it's just, the whole rhetoric doesn't make sense.
Hang on. Let me bring in the next word. Velcro.
So all we're doing now is detailing their excuse why we don't have Coriolis Effect, all of it in violation of natural law. So it's meaningless nonsense, despite the fact that the gravity you would be describing is 100 years out of date anyway. It's not adhered to by the current crop of pseudoscience priests.
Well, actually, no. As gravity weakens, that is actually the Einsteinian version. The Newtonian version is that gravity has the same strength no matter how high you go. So really, if you use that's what I'm saying. Using the current rhetoric, gravity weakens as you get further and further away from a mass.
What's weakening if it's not a force?
This so-called pseudo force that doesn't exist, that you're supposed to think of as a force.
So the pseudo force is weakening.
Right. So it loses. The pseudo force has the ability to weaken as it goes up, so it can't hold anything down.
Wasn't QE on yesterday when we were talking about the apparent Coriolis force and how it does not have a magnitude? You can't have a little meter in a plane accounting for a not actual force. Same applies to gravity. Not a force. No magnitude.
So the non-force force, that isn't the force.
Sleeping Warrior is just some bit from the chat. A force is a cause, an acceleration is an effect. Simple as that. Yeah, a force is a push or a pull. An interaction, something mechanical potentially happening to something else. Something forcing it to do something. That's what forces are. Not, well, it doesn't actually do anything or cause it to change in any direction whatsoever. That's a pseudo-force. Well, you don't have to account for pseudo-forces. They're not real. They're not actual. Nothing's actually happening. It might appear that something's happening, but it isn't.
I don't even understand why they had to call it a pseudo-force in the first place. Why did they even feel the need to put that comparison out there like that?
Because the Newtonian version was debunked with a helium balloon.
Okay.
The universal law
Are
of
you saying
gravitation,
pseudo-
mass attracting mass until you get to a mass that isn't attracting, it's repelling, like a helium balloon.
Not talking about Coriolis pseudo force?
Either gravity as a pseudo force, Coriolis as a pseudo force, any force that's not actually a force. You can think of Coriolis as a force, but it isn't. You can think that when you watch a plane seem to deviate, if that happened, it does not, because you were rotating underneath, which we are not, and you looked up and you said, oh, it looks like it's curving. Well, it's not. It just looks like it is because you're spinning underneath it. Well, that's not a force that the plane needs to concern itself with. It would have to concern itself with the ground rotating underneath because that would shorten flight times. But the effect of Coriolis, i.e. a not actual deviation, you don't have to worry about that in the plane. You can't even observe it from that reference frame. It's irrelevant from that inertial reference frame if you're in the plane. Nothing ever will occur in terms of Coriolis effect to that plane. Because you're not observing it from a non-inertial spinning reference frame if you're in the plane. So to talk about Coriolis when you're talking about a projectile, a train, a plane, a helicopter, a drone, or anything else that's in the inertial reference frame is irrelevant. Because Coriolis is only ever an observation from the spinning reference frame. So it doesn't matter what the projectile's doing, it doesn't matter if it's stationary, if it's a lamppost concreted into the ground as you spin around on a roundabout and look at it. Its momentum in that instance is zero. It's not moving, it's concreted. So the helicopter speeding up or slowing down, nothing to do with Coriolis. Only the apparent drift you think you see when you look at it rotating underneath it. And that would necessitate you rotating underneath it. For all those idiots who come here and say, look, you don't have any deviation. The plane's powered. Oh, right, what's that got to do with Coriolis effect when it's an observation from a spinning reference frame? Doesn't matter what the engines are doing. In the same way, it doesn't matter that my lamppost example's concreted into the ground. I still see it deviating. Seem to deviate. Go on, Owen.
So,
I'm getting this feedback loop. What is this? Okay, it's gone. But yeah, I had a sort of a historical technical question about the Coriolis effect, because I know when roughly Newton's theories were kind of established, but when was Coriolis effect like officially figured out? What era was that? Was that the same period? Was it
I've
made
no
by the
idea.
same people arranging Newtonian physics, as it were?
I don't know. It's not something that needs figuring out, per se. It's just an observation, right? You look at a ball as it leaves your hand on the roundabout. You just go, looks like it's deviating. And then you realise that it isn't. That's all it is. I mean, it's not like a
I know
discovery.
that. I get that totally. It can't be more clear. So many hours. But the issue is more like, where did the motivation to call it a pseudo force come from? That has to have a reason. You said, okay, it's because of Newtonian physics. But if it was established, the Coriolis force, which doesn't really have to do anything with forces, if it was established much later, then it's not that logical to me that it would be just to associate something that's not a force with a force because of gravity. No?
No, nothing to do with gravity.
The Coriolis force just means something spinning. When you see water circling a drain, that could be likened to a Coriolis force.
No,
It's
it
when
couldn't.
something is spinning
No, it
and
couldn't.
something else is
No,
deviating.
wrong. Stop. What do you mean water going down the drain could be equated to Coriolis force? No, unless you are actually in that swirling water, rotating with it, watching something seem to deviate, sod all to do with Coriolis effect. No, water going down the drain is not Coriolis effect. Coriolis effect is you rotating, not the water rotating. You in the water rotating if you're in a giant whirlpool and you're looking as you're spinning around in a whirlpool up at something that's fixed on the bank, for example, and you go, wow, that thing on the bank looks like it's curving because I'm spinning down a whirlpool. Well, that would be Coriolis because you're on a rotating non-inertial reference frame, a spinning whirlpool, but you're observing it from the spinning pool or the spinning hurricane. You have to be in the hurricane, spinning around, watching things seem to deviate for it to be called Coriolis effect. As for things that you watch spin, that's not actual deviation. That's not apparent deviation. That's an actual spin direction.
come on, Nathan. You know that whirlpool that water's moving in a straight line. You do know that, don't you? Come on.
For what lemon birds to make sense would mean that you're watching something that's actually going straight, you're spinning underneath it, and it looks like it's curving. In other words, you're watching a river from a roundabout, and as you spin around on the roundabout, you go, that river looks like it's bending around to the right as I move towards it. Well, obviously the river's not moving at all. It's a river. It's not suddenly moving its banks, but because you're spinning and looking at something that isn't, it seems to curve. Well, that river seeming to curve is a not actual deflection of the river.
Because I think the split is between the seeming Coriolis deviation and the actual deviation you get when you're in a spinning system that's deflecting your object. I think that's where some of the confusion lies.
No, the object does not deflect. No, the object doesn't deflect. If I'm on a roundabout, Lemon Bird, right, so I'm on a merry-go-round or a roundabout, and just off to the side of the roundabout, lighting the roundabout, is a lamppost. And it's concreted into the ground, it's lit up, and it's above the roundabout. Now, as I spin underneath the underneath the lamp on the roundabout, I'm spinning. And the Coriolis of force that you're going to describe is you looking up at the lamppost and watching the lamppost seem to come towards you and seem to move away from you as you rotate underneath it. Well, that observation, what you're actually looking at, in this case a lamppost, definitely doesn't have an actual spin direction. The lamppost is fixed. So likewise, if you're looking at something like a whirlpool or a hurricane, you're observing that actually spin rather than seem to spin because you're spinning. Does that make sense?
Well, in this philosophy, motion and forces are expressed as straight line vectors. Anything that makes it go off of its quote-unquote true straight path is going to be interpreted as a force. So
yeah, pseudo-force.
For the people in this philosophy, they need to explain why things do or do not go along their quote-unquote straight path that they quote-unquote would normally go into.
Right, but a whirlpool going down the drain isn't normally a straight path, is it?
Yeah, so that's why people would tend to say that there's a force taking it away from its straight, normal path.
Right.
In this philosophy.
But in Coriolis terms, Coriolis is not a force. It's not forcing anything to do anything. So when I go under the lamppost, has the lamppost moved when I see it seem to curve? No. There's no force applied to the lamppost. Even if there was, it's concreted into the ground. Still seems to curve, though. Still has a Coriolis force, pseudo-force, applied to it. Obviously, there's no force applied to it. The lampost's not moving. I'm moving underneath it. And my perception, my view, is that it seems to be moving. Pseudo-force.
In that case, we have a different definition of a force. The definition of a force that you seem to be using implies a knowledge of the natural activity of an object, and force is making it act in a way that it doesn't normally act. So for us to know what forces are, period, we need to know how things normally act to see whether or not they're being forced into a certain sort of behavior.
Okay, but, so as I spin under...
This stuff to get very crazy, philosophically anyway.
So as I spin under the roundabout, you tell me what force is applied to the lamppost I'm looking at as it seems to come towards me.
To the lamppost, there's no force to the lamppost at all.
But you're seeing Coriolis force. That's what you're observing when it seems to come towards you. That is the Coriolis force.
Well, spinning objects or objects in a spinning frame do appear to have some sort of deviation from their straight path. If you go with the philosophy that forces and vectors are normally expressed in a straight path. Based off of that philosophy, something is making it curve and go away from its straight path, and that's enough for a force for their ideology or whatever.
Yeah, a pseudo-force. As I say, there's nothing moving the lamppost, but it's still seeming to move in a curved path. Well, that's nothing to do with any force applied to it. It's you rotating underneath. Therefore, what you have and what you observe is a pseudo-force moving a concreted lamppost. Obviously, the concreted lampost's not moving. But you see it seem to move, but there's not a force there, just a pseudo-force.
Can I ask you about the lamppost, Nathan, real quick? Is that
you can, but I just want to shout out Al Junkie, who says, favourite food for a globe seller is word salad, smiley face. Thank you very much for the super chat. Also, Emma UK. Right the hand would love to be unbanned and join. I don't have any control over the server. I didn't know it was banned. Sorry. Go on, Paul.
Well, all he has to do is apologize and he can come back.
There you go. There's
Simple.
your answer from a mod in the server that isn't mine. Go ahead,
Is
Paul.
the lamppost in Narnia?
No, the lampost's on the ground.
So it's a pseudo force, but if it was in Narnia, it would be a real force, right?
No, it'd still be a pseudo-force. If you were underneath it in Narnia, you can still apply this pseudo-fictitious, non-actual force to a lamppost with you rotating underneath it. In fact, you don't even need a roundabout. If you just spin around under the roundabout and look up as you do so, the lamppost looks like it's moving. But in reality, it's just you twirling around underneath it. Well, that seeming to curve wouldn't become an actual force because you're in Narnia.
I was just checking, just making sure.
I thought you were leading to, well, if the lamppost was claimed to be on a spinning ball Earth, would it have a real force attached to it? But you weren't going there, clearly.
No, I wasn't going there. I was actually trying to see if I could make a joke, but it didn't work out.
Hey ho.
Well, so much of this definition of force is really contingent on knowing how an object normally acts. So unless we can say how an object normally acts, we can't really propose to know what's forcing what to move in whatever direction.
Yeah, but that's why they've picked this way of justifying a ball Earth that spins, because they can argue for 5 straight hours about what happens to the projectile. You're saying, well, we need to figure out what force is normally applied to whatever object we're observing to have Coriolis force. Well, I'm talking about a lamppost that's concreted into the ground, and correct me if I'm wrong, there's no assumptions required, there's no measurements required. I can say with absolute certitude that the lamppost I'm detailing is not moving. So what do I need to know about it?
You know, so much of relativity is asking, are we moving and or the other object moving? Because the lamppost wouldn't be moving, but if it's in a moving river, the river would move the lamppost while it does not move.
But that wouldn't be Coriolis.
Not moving, is it moving because it's in another moving medium?
Yeah,
it can get really philosophical.
You can, but none of this is Coriolis effect, though. As soon as you start detailing what the projectile's doing and how it's doing it, you're not describing Coriolis effect anymore. And that's why they do it the way they do it. Let's detail about how the projectile's moving, whether or not it's changing latitude, whether or not it's increasing, decreasing speed, whether or not it's retaining angular momentum, whether it's moving into the linear momentum. All of those things have got nothing to do with Coriolis effect whatsoever. But they'll detail them all day long, argue about whether or not you're retaining angular momentum. Well, who cares if your angular momentum's retained? The lamppost isn't moving a smegging inch. I can still see Coriolis effect in it, though. So I don't need to worry about what the lamppost, or the plane, or the bullet, or the pendulum, or anything else in the inertial reference frame is doing ever. And as soon as any fundy comes here and starts arguing about what the bullet, or the plane, or anything else is doing, I'll say I don't care. Because Coriolis effect is only ever an observation from the non-inertial spinning reference frame. What I see and how I see it is what Coriolis is. Not what the plane does, not what the bullet does, not what the lamppost does. Only what I see of the lamppost, or the plane, or anything else.
Because I think you're saying that the Coriolis effect is apparent and not actual. It doesn't cause any deflection. Because I think there's two camps here. One that's saying that it just looks like it's spinning, but it's not causing any real effect. And the other school that's saying when a spinning object spins, there's some sort of deflection and something that, makes something else veer off of its path by the spin of something. So I think what they're saying essentially is something is spinning for the Coriolis effects they say that they're observing, whatever that is.
But that's not Coriolis effect or supposed force. The centripetal or centrifugal type forces. It's something else.
Because the centrifugal and centripetal forces are just toward the object that's spinning and away from the object that's spinning. But on an object that's, like a ball, when that ball, spins, you're going to have like the tie-dye appear to deflect.
I keep telling you.
Coriolis was
I keep telling you, you're detailing stuff that's happening to projectiles. And it's irrelevant of Coriolis. Doesn't matter what the projectile's doing. At all. That's all they want to argue about, though. That's what the globeheads want to argue about, what the projectile's doing. Because the causes of Coriolis effect is Earth rotating underneath stuff in the inertial reference frame. And to see Coriolis effect, you're observing it from that spinning Earth. So you're only ever going to have a Coriolis effect if you're on an Earth that's spinning underneath things. And that doesn't happen. So what do we argue about? Whether or not we're spinning underneath stuff? No, we'll argue about what the projectile does. That's their trick. Now, I only figured this out a couple of days ago with Zanuck after a 5-hour extravaganza. But that's how the magic trick works. I never really understood why we ended up arguing for 5 hours straight. Now I know. Because they'll detail what the bloody projectile's doing, when they should be detailing what the observation from a spinning reference frame with you turning underneath stuff should be doing. And we want to focus on that purely because, forget the Coriolis effect, once you've got it established that to have Coriolis effect, you must be rotating underneath stuff, that shortens flight times. But they'll talk about what the flight does. Sod all to do with Coriolis.
Not necessarily. You could have space moving over the object.
Say again.
What?
Say again.
Space could move over the unmoving object. In this case, space could move over the unmoving Earth, swirling around.
What is space?
What does that have to do with observing something from a spinning reference frame, though?
That would give rise to the spinning forces they call Coriolis from the spin of space, but not the spin of the object.
Do you know what Coriolis
itself.
effect is, Lemonbird? Can you define Coriolis for me, please?
Let's see. According to the dictionary, hold on.
So let me get it straight. You've just spent 2 or 3 minutes, maybe longer, discussing what you think Coriolis effect is incorrectly on 3 separate occasions. Now you're going to go and look up what it actually means. My God.
I want a
oh dear.
Verbatim
Yeah, what?
definition.
You should know. You've just told me about bloody stuff going down the drain being Coriolis effect. Now you're having to look it up. Clearly you don't know what Coriolis effect is, Lemonbird. Why are you talking? I'm telling you off. I'm telling you off. Shut up.
A rotating system.
Shut up. I don't want your wiki parroting nonsense. Now I've asked you if you know it. You don't have to go and look it up and parrot it off what you've got from wiki. You clearly don't know what it is, or you wouldn't be detailing water going down a drain. Why are you even talking about this?
Deflection due to a spinning object.
A spinning object? No, that's wrong.
According to the dictionary, that's basically what it's saying.
Oh, really? It's funny that Discord, given that we're in a paradigm where most dictionary entries will be heliocentric in nature. So you haven't detailed what Coriolis effect is. It's very simple to define.
Yeah, deflection due to a spinning object. That's
that's wrong. You've missed out the crucial criteria of what gives you Coriolis effect in that explanation. You haven't detailed what causes it. What causes Coriolis?
The spin of the object?
Wrong! The spin of the... The spin of the non-inertial reference frame underneath an inertial reference frame. That's it.
Well, this dictionary definition says... in effect,
I don't care! I don't care. Do you think I care what you've just wiki parroted? Do you think I need challenging on this? Do you think I don't understand this, Lemonbird? Do you think I need a dictionary entry for me to understand Coriolis effect? I don't, I assure you. Just stop talking about it if you don't know what it is.
That's a wrong definition anyway.
Look, Coriolis effect is easy. Roundabout is a rotating non-inertial reference frame. Anything that leaves the roundabout is going to travel through the inertial reference frame. You rotating underneath as part of the non-inertial spinning reference frame and observing something not in your reference frame gives you Coriolis. One reference frame spinning under another. You observing from the spinning reference frame. That's it. It's really easy.
Because this definition doesn't say that. It says a force that tends acting perpendicular to the direction of motion into the
Well, it's
axis of
wrong.
rotation.
Well, it's wrong. Coriolis is a pseudo force. It's not pushing or pulling anything. As I look at the ball seem to curve, it's not actually curving. There is no force on the ball to give you Coriolis deviation. So when it starts off its explanation in the dictionary, it's a force, it's wrong.
Lemonbird, what does apparent deflection mean to you?
That it's not real. That there's no deviation from its normal path.
Well, and what reference frame is it in when you say that?
In the non-inertial reference frame?
Wrong.
Wrong.
So you need to understand how this works. It's not complicated once you understand it. But if you don't understand it, you'll assert that, no, this is happening from the non-inertial reference. No, the projectile's in the inertial reference frame. You're on the non-inertial reference frame observing it.
May I try something, Nathan?
Yeah.
All right, Lemonbird. Let's just work the argument backwards. They're trying to say we live on a ball that's spinning. Yeah. So if we live on the ball that's spinning and an airplane leaves the non-inertial reference frame, which would be the airport tarmac, and it's in the air, it's now in the inertial reference frame because it left the non-inertial reference frame. And if the Earth was spinning, the flight back from Charlotte, North Carolina to LA would be reduced by half the time, basically, because the Earth is now spinning towards you. But since that never happens, they make up all this crap. You understand why it's so convoluted? Because we're not spinning.
There's somebody showing something on voice chat, some sort of Coriolis nonsense. It's on a table, though, spinning table.
That's okay. That doesn't make it
If
nonsense.
that's the 1960 video, I have that. That is actually demonstrating Coriolis effect. I have that video.
Yeah, but he's not explaining it right. He swears that you got it wrong, and he's got 5 experiments that prove space-time.
Who has?
Regicidal? Something like that? I don't know
Who
what
has?
his name is.
Who are you talking about?
Regicidal? I told him come on and pipe up, but he won't. He's right under me on Discord.
That is. Oh, no, I saw the video. That is the video that describes Coriolis effect. If you watch the video completely, he's only showing you one piece of it. The guy that's on the one side is pushing the puck away from him, and because the table is spinning underneath, it appears from your vantage point that it's curving, but it's not. It's actually moving in a straight line. So that video is actually a good video that talks about the Coriolis effect.
Is that black and white one that you showed in the past, Paul?
Yes, that's the same one.
Yeah, that's a really good video. That actually proves the Earth is not spinning.
They claim it proves the Earth is spinning. I don't know.
Well, that's why they're brain dead. I mean,
Yeah.
what can you do with the
Come on,
mental illness?
Regicidals.
We can't fix
Speak your
everything on
pain.
this show, you know. Share your pain.
Share it, Regicidal. Come on out. Is that how you say your name? Why don't you come on and tell me how to pronounce your name?
Tell us where we're wrong, more importantly.
I want to see these 5 experiments that prove space-time.
Well, we can get to that. If you're saying we're wrong about Coriolis, fine, let's hear it. Let's hear how we're wrong. Hello? Dude, you're on the panel. Live show.
That's what I told them.
kick him out. If he's in the panel just to spam our chat, I don't even look or display. Just kick him out. No point being
Who
here,
is
mate.
it?
If you're just here to troll the chat on a live show, go in the
I
live
did tell
stream,
him that.
troll
You're
that
not going to
chat.
contribute to leave.
If it was Regical, he was on mute. I just took him off mute.
Well, and I was just saying too that that's a good video describing Coriolis, so I don't understand how we're wrong if he's saying we're wrong by what that video is describing. Just please explain.
Here to troll the chat. Last call, Reggie Carl. I give up.
He's typing something. Let's see.
I don't care what he's typing. He's in the voice chat.
He says he's making waffles. He'll come after he's done making waffles.
So he's waffling.
Well,
thank you. That was perfect. Waffling.
I say it's fine then.
Right.
Talking crap, but he
Says
doesn't
that's
want to come
Kosho.
on.
Hold on. That's Kosho, Nathan. That's Kosho. Oh, okay. Thank you very much for letting me know, Emma UK. Also, another shout out to Al Jungi, who says, "You got your ass handed. Don't be bitter, Lemon Bird." I don't think he was. You're not bitter, are you, Lemon Bird?
I'm good. The main thing is whether or not a spinning object causes a real or just an apparent deflection. Does it cause things to deviate off of their true path or not? Because if it causes stuff to deviate off of their normal path without the spin, that would tend to be interpreted as a force.
Yeah, but it isn't. You spinning underneath something isn't going to force anything in the inertial reference frame to do anything. You can't cause something to do something just by looking at it. You can't cause the plane to curve. It just seems to curve when you watch it.
Remember, this isn't that difficult. If the Earth is spinning, and you're on it, that would be considered a non-inertial reference frame, much like the roundabout that Nathan uses, a spinning roundabout. If you're on that thing and you throw a ball into the air straight, you're continuing to turn underneath it. So observationally, it looks like it's curving, but it's straight because it's in the inertial reference frame now. If it was in your hand and you never threw it, it'd be turning with you. Nothing to
Unless
view
space
other than
is spinning above the Earth, then you could have a spinning
what?
deflection
No,
or
say it
whatever
again.
from spinning space.
What space?
Solid, spinning, viscous ether space.
So you're saying the gases are spinning with the Earth, is that what you're saying?
The Earth doesn't move. Space over the Earth moves.
Yeah, I think a guy discussed this yesterday. He was saying that, again, in their paradigm, the only actual claim of Coriolis that they could assert, given that they, at trench level, assert that the atmosphere is travelling along with the Earth, would be that the Sun is giving you an apparent movement, when in reality we're traversing it. We're orbiting it according to their rhetoric. So therefore, the movement of the Sun would be a Coriolis deviation. It's not moving, you're moving under it. That's their paradigm from space.
Lemonbird, what does the so-called ether have to do with Coriolis?
The spinning deviation would come from the spinning space, not the spinning Earth.
Say that again. The rotation would give you Coriolis. No. You have to be part of the spinning reference frame. So for you to observe Coriolis effect in that description that you've just given, you would need to be in this fanciful ether spinning around with it, watching something in an inertial reference frame not actually deviating, but seem to deviate because you're spinning around in the ether.
Loves that ether.
put me to sleep last time I met it.
Boom, boom. But I just want.
Now, give me something to believe in.
I just want this to be clear with Lemonbird. Do you understand, Lemonbird, that whenever you're detailing spin and you're referencing Coriolis, you're going to be part of the observation and you're going to be on the spinning whatever. It doesn't matter what. You're on mute at the moment, Lemonbird.
I don't know. I guess I'm going to have to study up on this to see whether a spinning object causes an apparent or a real deflection from a thing's normal path, whatever that is. Otherwise, this Coriolis thing could be interpreted as the spin of the space above the Earth that's not moving. I think it's been erroneously interpreted as the Earth moving when really it's space above the Earth that's moving while the Earth stands still. With the ether.
That might be the case. Or it might not be. But that's not Coriolis effect. You observing something spin isn't Coriolis effect. You being part of something that spins and watching something that's not part of that reference frame that's spinning, that's Coriolis. So whenever you detail something above your head like a hurricane, or in this instance, ether spinning, you watching something with an actual spin direction is not Coriolis. I'll just say it once more for Lemonbird. To observe Coriolis, to be detailing Coriolis, you are going to be spinning and watching something. That must be the case to be describing Coriolis. You watching something while you spin.
Can I say maybe real concisely too, maybe a different wording? If something is actually spinning, that is not Coriolis effect. The apparent spinning, that is Coriolis effect.
Yeah, not actual spin directions, apparent deviation.
I mean, in that video, if you watch the video, it looks like the puck is spinning, but it's actually not. It's actually going straight.
Yeah, you've got retards in the chat. Evergreen. Nathan Oakley, why don't we see hurricanes crossing the equator? Who gives a shit? It's not Coriolis effect. It's not proving Earth spins. It's got nothing to do with Coriolis effect unless you're actually spinning around in that hurricane. So who cares, moron, from the chat, Evergreen? That's not Coriolis effect, moron. That's an actual spin direction you're detailing with hurricanes? Morons.
It's amazing when they even look up in their own textbooks. It's a fictitious force, and why they give it any validity after their own math professors call it fictitious. It's just amazing to be a ball-tard after an education like this.
Wish Chaka was here so he can read the actual definition that Kosho cited. That'd be nice, but he's not here.
Because there's no Coriolis effect on the equator. What are you talking about? Coriolis effect on the equator would be in effect if Earth was spinning. You'd still be part of a spinning reference frame on a spinning Earth watching things deviate at the equator if Earth was spinning. So again, Evergreen, sit down, shut up, you're a moron, you don't understand what Coriolis effect is. Yes, there would be a Coriolis effect on the equator if Earth was spinning. There isn't, therefore there isn't.
So how can an apparent deflection cause a hurricane to spin?
It can't. Unless the hurricane is actually a wind travelling in a straight line and you look up at it from a spinning reference frame and see it seem to curve. Seem, meaning it's travelling straight and only seeming to curve. Unless that's the case, which it isn't when you've got a hurricane, it's got an actual spin direction. Coriolis is a not actual force. So describing what hurricanes do is irrelevant. Again, you're detailing something that's occurring in a claimed inertial reference frame, when Coriolis is an observation from a non-inertial spinning reference frame. So me observing a hurricane with an actual spin direction, that's not it seeming to curve as I rotate underneath it. That's not Coriolis effect.
Who the heck is this Easy E guy? That's it. I'm done with chat. That's it. Come on the show.
Well, that was a fun discussion of Coriolis.
Hey, Nathan,
About the
I'm
5
going to
experiments.
post that reference that Paul said chocolate. Post it. I just found it. So I'll
Where
post
did
it.
you-
Master B and Paul, if you can read it. Second. Okay.
I don't see it in Master B.
It's coming. It's coming. Okay. Should arrive.
Okay, got it.
This is the one Kosho. This is the one Kosho did. Got it, Paul?
Hang on a second. I thought you put it in Master B. It looks like you. Okay, hang on a second. I'll look for it. Hang on. I've got some background noise. Yeah, you might read it. I've got it shared. I got some background noise.
I'll read it if that's all right then. I just want to give you the opportunity. This is the one Kosho put up. The object is not actually moving off its course. It only appears to be doing so because the Earth is turning beneath it. Causes of Coriolis effect. The main cause of Coriolis effect is the Earth's rotation, period. As the Earth spins in a counterclockwise direction on its axis, anything flying or flowing over a long distance above its surface is deflected. This occurs because as something moves freely above the Earth's surface, the Earth moves east under the object at a faster speed. And the Baltard put that up as proof.
Yeah, you're going to need an inertial reference frame with a non-inertial reference frame turning underneath it to have a Coriolis effect. And if that's the case, you're going to reduce flight times because Earth's rotating underneath planes.
There's no getting around that.
They say explain why.
Explain
I
why.
think you've done it a million times.
I don't mind explaining again and again and again. Earth's rotating underneath aeroplanes, helicopters, or anything else for that matter. Then you're going to have reduced flight times because Earth's rotating underneath aeroplanes. That's what gives you Coriolis effect. You watching things whilst you rotate underneath them. That's what gives you Coriolis effect. So if you've got Coriolis effect, you've got Earth rotating underneath planes. It's just that simple. If you haven't got Earth rotating under planes, as they argue and fight about here whilst detailing things that happen in the inertial reference frame, completely in contrast to what Coriolis effect actually is and how it's described, then you're going to detail how you don't have anything occurring from the inertial reference frame, when you should have something absolutely observable and apparent deflection from the non-inertial reference frame, and we don't observe that. We don't observe planes seeming to curve as we watch them travel straight. And if we did, i.e. if there was a Coriolis effect, that flight that we see seeming to curve is only curving because Earth's rotating underneath it. Therefore, flight times would be reduced. Simple.
They spend their whole time fighting the deviation that should be there because they can't prove the Earth is spinning. And then they get lost in these stupid arguments about fictitious force and apparent deflection. And they actually think they could make it reality just by talking about it. I mean, they come on the show, Nathan, and they argue against the deviation that they're supposed to have to even prove the Earth is spinning.
Right, well, they won't get away with that for much longer on account of the fact that they're no longer going to get to argue about what's happening in the inertial reference frame anymore, because that's not Coriolis effect. So that'll get stopped in their tracks.
Yeah, deception. Under this.
I have noticed since the Black Swan, they're going back to old arguments.
I think the hill that people are dying on is whether or not there is a deflection, whatever it is, Coriolis or not, due to something spinning. I think what the ballers are saying is this has to come from a spinning Earth.
Yeah.
When the alternative could be it's from spinning space over the unmoving Earth.
Yeah,
I think that's the main hang-up here.
No.
They're saying
no.
it appears to be some sort of
No,
deflection
that stops
from
being
something.
Coriolis. No,
spinning.
I've just said this 3 times to you. That stops being Coriolis then. As soon as you say no, it could be something else that's nothing to do with a rotating platform underneath a non-rotating platform. Well, then it's not Coriolis then. So it's not like, well, that's the explanation for this occurrence we don't see. Maybe there's an alternative explanation for an apparent phenomena we don't actually observe. I don't see planes seeming to curve.
But you still don't get
because
it.
if the air above the Earth was free enough to be inertial, non-inertial, or whatever, while the Earth is in a different reference frame, like you say, flight times would be different because the Earth would spin beneath it, and you'd spin faster, against, or you get to your destination faster going against the spin, waiting for the Earth to spin beneath you to spin your destination to you, than you'd go if you were going with the spin in the other direction.
Correct.
That would be, the case, yes.
Yeah. But detailing the flight times, as we do, is only as a result of the cause of Coriolis. So to have a Coriolis effect, the cause of that effect is you rotating underneath aeroplanes. Well, if you're rotating underneath aeroplanes, the cause of Coriolis effect, to have a Coriolis effect, you've got to be rotating underneath. Well, then flight times are reduced, because Earth's rotating underneath planes. As it's nearly the end of the show, just for anybody who wasn't aware, flight times are not reduced because Earth's turning underneath, which would be necessitated to have this Coriolis effect they claim. All you'll ever get from globeheads is the assertion that you have 15 degrees an hour proving Earth spins. What they don't add on to their statement is 15 degrees an hour of the Earth rotating underneath. They don't add that bit on, because then your follow-up, your rebuttal would be, if Earth's rotating underneath at 15 degrees an hour, as claimed by Pendulum and Gyro, then it's rotating underneath planes at 15 degrees an hour, and it would shorten flight times.
Pretty simple.
Yep, very simple. It's going to get a whole lot simpler now. We're not going to be arguing about what's happening to bullets and planes and drones in the inertial reference frame anymore, because that's not Coriolis. So we're no longer going to have to worry about arguing about whether or not we've got a retention of angular velocity. Who cares? That's not Coriolis. I can detail it with a lamppost that's not even moving, so I don't need to worry about what the projectile's doing.
Now they're saying in unison that the inertial reference frame, the atmosphere, is spinning with the Earth. Almost in unison now. I love it.
That's not Coriolis, then.
Great fun.
That's not Coriolis effect, then. That's one reference frame, and you need 2 to have a Coriolis effect. You need one rotating under the other. So if they're spinning in unison, you don't have 2 reference frames. Therefore, you won't ever achieve Coriolis. No proof of Earth spinning.
Yep, it's delusional on many levels. No Coriolis effect, and please explain how gas molecules who have no intermolecular bonds are spinning together and then attached to the Earth, and then explain east, north, and south surface winds. Bozos. Carnival tent bozos, man. That's what we got.
And with that, I think I'll say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G Plus panels for making today's live show possible. If you are watching this on the Nathan Oakley premiering stream, however, stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. A massive, huge, enormous thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, and all that good stuff. Be sure to check out nathanoakley.com and the Flat Earth Debate Forum to keep up to date with the community debate. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on the premiering stream. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Hello out there.
Hello.
Hey, before you close out today, man, I got a couple quick admin questions.
Go ahead. We're in the after show now anyway.
I don't want to do it in a show. It ruins the show, so it's just admin.
Okay, don't bother then. Funny pace to today's show. I don't know if anyone else picked up on that. Yeah, Nathan, I thought it was quite weirdly paced too. Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah.
I was paying
In
too
what
much
way?
attention to the chat.
Sorry, in what way?
In what way, Neil?
I was just
No.
paying too much attention to the chat. That's it. I sent my last message. I ignore that now because nobody wants to come on. They want to talk shit, but nobody wants to come on.
Now, I was asking you about the pace. In what way? Slow? It would fits and starts.
Yeah, just normally at a point that you'd expect somebody to rumpus the crap out of you when you're pointing out like pretty critical things at the moment. So I feel there's been a bit of progression made with this argument of Coriolis. I don't know how you feel, but that 5-hour little stint with Zanuck was well worth it.
Oh boy!
Just there's another shortcut. Go on.
No. It's like you said. It's a very difficult argument. It's very easy to obfuscate. It's very easy to confuse, deflect. So you mastered it. But getting through the whole thing with everyone following you, yeah, I think some people are picking it up now. Yes. Everyone, no. And the ballers are still they don't even know their names. For fuck's sake.
Yeah, Zanuck is not. He ain't getting it.
Hey, Chocolate. Good
What's
to have
going on,
you.
guys?
It just seems like
I was worried.
with Coriolis Effect, I think it's already had 20 layers of bullshit put on it before we even got here. So unpicking those layers of bullshit before getting to the crux of the argument, which to be perfectly honest, Brian Mullen got straight to immediately. So, that hasn't changed. The argument hasn't changed. The lack of Coriolis deviation on a claim to be spinning Earth hasn't changed. But the layers of bullshit have come to the surface, which were already there. The layers of bullshit for gas pressure without a container, if you ignore the sort of late 90s moving of the tall gradient values, with that being the only exception, that they haven't really been able to react. There may be something in the future, but Coriolis Effect, it was like there was already a pre-programmed response already there in the midst of this debate before we even got here. Or at least that's how it seems to me.
Brian had the majority of it right, but he got a couple minor things wrong. I wouldn't call him minor, but I don't want to drag him around. He did an outstanding job overall.
Yeah, he broke down the shortened flight times you'd have if you've got Earth rotating underneath. It was fairly basic stuff that he went through. I'm not going to say I can remember any errors, but at the time I didn't have a really good grasp of Coriolis, so
I can't remember the actual errors. I wrote them out during that time, but I forgot.
He was one of the first ones that kind of helped push me over the edge, even more so in Flat Earth, was Brian Mullins. Something I've always thought about when I think about flights is an aircraft carrier. Imagine I don't know if you guys know, but like when they take off and when they land, they put the aircraft carrier in full throttle in both ways. So it's like when the aircraft lands, that way the aircraft or the carrier is moving as fast as it can. So when the airplane lands, it can be moving relatively fast too, and also for takeoff. Now imagine if they were trying to land and the aircraft carrier was going he had to come in at an angle as it's moving. That would not work. But that's what they say has to happen on the spinning Earth, and that's what Brian Mullins pointed out. Because if runways are pointed north to south, then the plane trying to land would be almost impossible to do because of the movement of the Earth. Go ahead.
You ever been in a plane when it's trying to land in the middle of a storm and it literally is just kind of almost seems like it's hovering up there because it can't get to the ground? Like sometimes it's so bad that the plane will actually just take back up off.
Yes.
Like it'll just go back up in the air.
Yeah,
I've watched that because I worked at an airport for 10 years. I've seen that happen a lot. Now
Yeah,
imagine trying to do that while the runway is rotating underneath you.
That was terrifying. That was the most scary experience I've ever had during flying, was coming in for a landing in Canada, and everything seemed relatively normal until the plane took a sharp turn to the left, i.e. the left side of the plane dipped, and then the plane just dropped. And I was looking out the window at the time, which I normally am, and I just saw the ground hurtling towards us as we dropped out of the sky. And as it happened, literally within half a second, you heard the engines go up to absolute full power, 120% or whatever. And it still carried on falling. I've got goosebumps just telling this story because I didn't literally, but I shit myself because I thought I was going to die. But the engines come on full, right? And I don't know what's happened, if it's a thermal pocket or something or a big gust of wind, but the plane was falling out of the sky. And the engines probably take 60 seconds, maybe longer, to actually reach full power. So what's happening is we're falling towards the ground. We're quite low. We're coming in for landing, so we're already quite low anyway. We're already going at a slower pace, and now we're falling sideways, and I'm looking at the ground coming towards me through the window, and I'm hearing the engines going, but we're still falling, and nothing's happening. And everyone on the plane is screaming. They all think the same as me. I was just as terrified as everyone else. Everyone's screaming. They all think they're going to die. until the engines kick in and the pilot gains control of the plane, gets it level, and then does a go around. And for about 15 minutes, maybe longer, while he was doing the go around to come back in again to land, there wasn't a word spoken. Nobody said anything. Yeah. And I've heard people clap a couple of times just because they're idiots when planes land. But on that occasion, even I clapped when we landed.
Wait a second. The pilot
I had a sort of similar flight,
that?
except 3 times the pilot had to go. He went down. He tried. He couldn't get on the ground. He had to go up again 3 times in a row. It was the most fearful I ever was being on a freaking plane. I was like, holy shit, this is insane. Because when you're up there and the storm is just throwing the plane around, it literally it feels like a toy.
Yeah.
You're the sense of just helplessness. You're just like, holy shit.
How about the moment before you get ready to land, you're coming in level, everything's good, and the tail spins out the other direction. It's like you're coming in sideways, like a hockey player trying to get around the goalie when he's coming in.
That's not uncommon. I've had that happen loads of times. I know what you're talking about. Are you looking out, depending on which window you're looking at, you potentially could be looking down the runway from the side of the plane because the plane's physically coming in cockeyed, skew-if, and then when it hits the ground, it has to straighten up very rapidly. That's fairly common. I've had that loads of times.
Yeah, it's called crosswind landings.
Crosswind landing. Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, we had when I was stationed at Tonopah test range. We flew in once or twice a week up and out of Nellis Air Force Base, and they had Vegas, because of the temperature, you had the crosswinds, but you also had turbulence. So imagine having the turbulence and the crosswinds. And then you got a pilot that used to be a fighter pilot flying the plane that liked to have fun with us. Imagine that.
Yeah, so just throw, you got crosswinds, turbulence, just throw in a rotating Earth to land on, and that should be fun.
No problem.
I remember seeing a pilot interviewed once, and he said that flying commercial airliners was hours and hours of protracted boredom punctuated by moments of sheer terror.
Wow, that sounds fun.
How about the
Also
guy that
thro-
landed in
hang
the
on.
city in the water?
Also throw in the gas that would escape into an impossible vacuum and try to fly through that.
And the drop that you've got to account for constantly. Yeah, there's a lot of things pilots should be really worried about, but don't ever have any concern for. It's amazing. You'd think this whole spinning ball Earth would cause a real problem for them. Amazingly, they just get on with it, and it's just the crosswinds that cause them problems. Bit of turbulence occasionally.
And if you read the documents, they say when coming to aerodynamic frames, you have to treat the Earth as level and flat and non-moving when you're dealing with planes. They actually tell you that. Man, don't you have that document somewhere?
But that don't make
Say
any
that again,
sense.
Saul.
I got it somewhere. What do you mean, the NASA one? Because there's a bunch. Which one do you mean?
Well, just pick one. The NASA one will be fine if it's easy to find. Just share it.
Yeah.
I'll bring it up. Or
hold up.
The NASA one's the best
Yeah.
from the 80s. That's the best one, in my opinion. It surprises me that NASA have got so many useful references. You know, got a box with gas particles, or a depiction of a box with gas particles on. And NASA have got their own definition that we cite quite frequently about requiring walls of a container to have gas pressure. And same applies when they're talking about their actual aeronautics. In this reference that Chocolate's about to dig out, they're going to be describing a flat, non-rotating, stationary plane, i.e. flat surface, when they're flying. That's what you've got to consider. Just amazing. Cut to
I have a question for the panel
Go ahead, Rumpus.
about rotating Earth.
Earth
What does
doesn't
the panel
rotate.
think?
Hold on.
What does the
Hold
panel
on.
think of a
There's already a
rotating
problem.
Earth?
There's already a problem. You've already begged the question. You've got a question about a rotating Earth. Earth doesn't rotate.
Yeah.
If it did, flight
Yeah,
times
but
would be reduced.
No, it wouldn't. Just imagine it, though. Just imagine a theoretical scenario.
Well, just beg
in
the
which Earth
question.
is
No,
rotating.
I've just told you. No, there's a problem. You've started by just telling us to assume Earth's spinning, and I'm not going to. Zanuck didn't get away with it, and neither will you. No, you're not going to get to beg the question here. If Earth
I want
was
you to
spinning,
imagine
flight
it.
times would be reduced, and they're not.
No, they
Because
wouldn't.
Earth's not
No, they
rotating underneath aeroplanes, as it must, if you have Coriolis
Here we
deviation.
go. I'll ask the question about rotating Earth underneath.
Well, we haven't got
Imagine-
one, so there's no point asking.
Yeah,
There's no point
just
asking me a
imagine
question about an Earth that
theoretically.
doesn't rotate, because it doesn't rotate, and
Just
I'm not going to
imagine
allow you to beg the
theoretically.
question.
Just imagine this for a moment.
No, I'm not going to allow begging the question here.
Imagine.
Are you
I'm not asking you to
deaf?
beg the question. I'm asking you to imagine some
No,
circumstance.
that's begging the question. Imagining it is just you telling me I'm going to imagine you're begging the question fallacy from your first three words. No.
Just imagine the scenario
No!
I'm describing.
No. I'm not going to imagine it. It's
Okay.
not spinning, so I'm not going to imagine it. You imagine it, fantasist. You
Okay,
can
I'll
imagine it, you bloody fantasist.
I'll imagine it then.
Good for you. Sod off and imagine it elsewhere, shit for brains. I'm not going to listen to your musings and imagination about what Earth does. No, you don't get to beg the question and just parrot on and plough on regardless. You don't get to beg the question here.
Only we can do that.
No, we're disproving Earth is spinning by asserting that if we had an Earth that spins, we'd have shortened flight times. We don't, therefore it doesn't
No,
spin.
we wouldn't. You don't understand the geometry of the situation.
We don't understand.
Okay.
It wouldn't.
So,
Is that
hold on.
because we don't
Hold
have
on.
a Coriolis?
Chocolate, hold on. Chocolate, hold on. From the chat, Rumpus.
In that
Rumpus.
sentence, Nathan, you've
Yeah, no, I'm
yourself
asking you.
speculated about
Shut
rotating.
up. You said 15 degrees an hour from the chat. 15 degrees an hour of
Right.
Earth turning underneath, right?
You just imagined a rotating Earth there, Nathan, and you said
I just asked you if 15 degrees an hour, which you quoted from the chat, was 15 degrees an hour of Earth rotating underneath.
It is indeed rotating at 15 degrees.
Well, then you'd have shortened flight times. If Earth's rotating underneath at 15 degrees an hour, then flight times would be reduced. Therefore, Earth is not rotating. I don't need to imagine anything. Flights disprove it's turning.
No, they don't. They prove that it's not. So, here we go.
Does the Earth rotate under airplanes?
Yeah,
so here we go.
Does Earth rotate under aeroplanes at 15 degrees an hour to give you a Coriolis deviation or not?
Well, my question will explain this.
I don't want a question, I want an answer. Does Earth rotate underneath planes at 15 degrees an hour as per the claim of Coriolis or not?
The Earth rotates, as you put it, underneath an aeroplane's entire...
Well, then you'd have shortened flight times. If Earth rotates underneath aeroplanes, then the flight times would be reduced because Earth's rotating underneath them. And they don't have shortened flight times. Therefore, Earth's not rotating under planes.
How fast is the Earth rotating?
It's not. You don't get to beg the question, shit for brains, 5th time in a row. Don't ask me how fast it's rotating. It isn't. If it was, flight times would be reduced.
No, they wouldn't.
Yes, they would. You've just said, yeah, Earth's claimed to be rotating underneath at 15 degrees an hour. That would shorten flight times.
No, it wouldn't.
Just a hand wave. No, yeah, it would. If Earth's rotating underneath that plane, then it cannot have anything other than the flight time reduced. Because Earth's rotating underneath it according to the claim of a ball Earth that spins. That's why we don't need to beg the question. We can prove it's not spinning because Earth isn't rotating under planes as per your claim earlier.
Any more time
Can I ask him, Rumpus?
You don't allow him to get more than a sentence out. So if what you're saying is true, Nathan, then the time taken to move, say, to run up and down a train and up towards the direction...
No, that's describing something happening in the inertial reference frame. That's not Coriolis effect. Me running up and down a train isn't me observing something from a non-inertial spinning reference frame. This isn't Coriolis effect. This is a red herring fallacy.
This is not indeed a Coriolis effect.
Just say it again. Me running up and down a train is not me observing something from a non-inertial spinning reference frame. This is not Coriolis effect. You're detailing stuff that's happening to projectiles in inertial frames of reference. This isn't Coriolis. You don't understand what Coriolis is if you're going to detail what a man does when he's running up and down a train, because Coriolis is an observation from a non-inertial spinning reference frame, you moron.
Nothing you've described's got anything to do with Coriolis force. Flight time.
Define it.
Define the Coriolis.
Define it.
You don't understand what
Define
Coriolis
it.
is.
Define it then. Define Coriolis.
Right. Coriolis is the force that is
Wrong. Immediately wrong. Coriolis is not a force, it's a pseudo-force. Rumpus is a thick shit. Doesn't understand that it's not a force. You think that we've got actual deviation because it's being forced, you moron? No, idiot. Coriolis is not a force. It's an apparent deviation, not an actual deviation, you complete retard.
Let me finish and then you can attack me.
What, let you finish telling me it's a force? No, I'll stop you in your tracks, you retard, and tell you, because I'm in authority here. I'm telling you, it's not a force, retard.
It is a force. That's
wrong. It's a pseudo-force, not actual deflection, not actual force, pseudo-force. Coriolis is not a force. You are a retard, Rumpus.
With respect to the rotating...
Rumpus, what does pseudo mean again?
Sorry, with respect to the rotating reference frame, how is a man running up and down a train watching with respect from the reference frame that's spinning? It isn't. You're an idiot.
That's right, because that's nothing to do...
That's right. So when I stopped you and said this isn't Coriolis when detailing a man running up and down a train, I was correct. Yeah, that's why I stopped you, because it's a red herring fallacy.
Yeah, but this has nothing to do with Coriolis. Flight
Yeah,
time.
that's right, dickhead. What you're detailing is nothing to do with Coriolis. So shut up.
Then why'd you bring it up?
Yeah, why'd you bring it up then, you fucking moron? Why are you talking about something that isn't Coriolis and then openly declaring that it's not Coriolis? Yeah, we know. We're telling you.
Flight times have got
Don't
nothing.
shout at me, shit for brains. Don't tell me what flight times do. You're a retard who doesn't understand Coriolis. It's not a force, moron. And what a guy does while running up and down a train, as you've just admitted, is not Coriolis. So why are you even here to argue about nonsense that isn't Coriolis?
You are confused between...
I'm not confused, you ad homing little shit. You've just told us that a man rubbing up and down a train isn't Coriolis. So what, you're going to tell me I don't understand when you're not detailing it?
Flight times have got nothing to do with...
Don't tell me what flight times is while you eat your microphone. If the Earth was spinning underneath planes, flight times would be reduced. They're not. So Earth's not spinning underneath. To have Coriolis effect, Earth must spin underneath and you must observe things from that spinning reference frame. It's only ever an observation from a spinning reference frame. It's not what the guy does running up and down the train, retard.
Correct. The guy running...
Yeah, so shut up with your example about what a guy does. Correct. Yeah, I know I'm correct. I'm the one who's right. You're the one detailing guys running up and down trains. Complete non sequitur.
Flight times have everything...
Don't tell me what flight times do. On a flight time, it's not an observation from a Coriolis effect inducing non-inertial reference frame. If you're on the flight, you're not experiencing Coriolis, idiot. Don't you know what Coriolis is? You don't experience it on a flight.
Correct. And flight...
So why are you talking about it? You unbelievable fuckwit. I hope you enjoy the taste of my salty nuts while I teabag your stupid ass. Yeah, you keep conceding that we're not talking about Coriolis when you talk about what a fucking plane does or what a man does running up and down a train. You're not going to talk about what happens in the inertial reference frame when Coriolis effect is not that.
You keep using flight times as proof of the lack of Coriolis.
No, a proof of a lack of Earth spinning, moron. To have Coriolis effect, you need Earth rotating under planes. And if Earth's rotating under planes, it shortens flight times. The shortening of flight times isn't Coriolis, but to have Coriolis, you'd need Earth rotating under planes. It's not that complicated, retard.
Correct. Coriolis...
Yeah, I know I'm correct. I understand that this entire conversation, you've done nothing but obfuscate with details of things that aren't Coriolis, and then confirmed when I pointed that out that I'm correct. Yes, I know I'm correct, Rumpus.
Flight times have...
Don't tell me what flight times do. That's not an observation from a non-inertial reference frame. How many times, retard?
You keep on using flight times...
Yeah, to debunk the Earth, which, if it had a Coriolis effect, would have Earth turning under planes. So I'm detailing how we debunk the claim we have Coriolis effect. Because if we had it, Earth would be rotating under planes, and it does not. You, on the other hand, are detailing what the plane does, whilst detailing how we have Coriolis.
There are two things, and of course you get them confused. It's quite simple.
Rumpus,
Here we
don't
go.
you have
So an
two different reference frames in your narrative?
Let me finish.
Rumpus.
Don't interrupt me. I've only...
You do what the fuck he likes, Rumpus. You're a prick. You're a shill for the globe. You're an asshole, Rumpuser. All you do is talk, people. Whenever I have a conversation with you, I've got to permanently pepper the mute button just so I can be fucking heard. All you've done is talk shit here. You haven't talked about anything related to Coriolis effect. You haven't confirmed that 15 degrees an hour is Earth rotating underneath.
Give me a chance. If I will, I'll cover all of those things if you give me a chance.
So Earth's rotating underneath aeroplanes then? So Earth is rotating underneath aeroplanes then, Rumpus?
Right, now this is the original...
Right? No, wrong, moron. That would shorten flight times.
No, it wouldn't.
Oh, wouldn't it? Earth rotating underneath an aeroplane wouldn't shorten a flight time. You're a retard. Yes, it would.
You don't understand relative velocity?
Just an ad hom. I don't understand. Yeah, I understand that if I'm rotating underneath something, that would shorten its flight time. The projectile has got Earth rotating underneath it. You're an idiot. You don't understand. You don't understand Coriolis, retard.
Relative velocity has got nothing to do with Coriolis.
Relative losses? Sorry, apparent deviation, mate. Don't you understand what Coriolis effect is? Apparent deviation, moron.
Yeah, and that's a force causes a deviation.
Not a force, moron. No force is causing anything to curve. Nothing's curving if you have Coriolis effect. I don't witness planes seeming to curve as Earth rotates underneath them. And if it did, that would shorten flight times.
Hey, Rumpus, I got a question for you. Does apparent also means real?
Right, so the reason...
No, wrong. Not right, idiot. Wrong. Apparent doesn't mean real. It means not actual. Observed but not really happening.
That was Arwin's comment, not mine. So, when you're in an aeroplane and you run up...
That's not an observation from a non-inertial reference frame. You're immediately talking about something that isn't Coriolis effect, aren't you, Rumpus?
Correct, I am.
No! You keep telling me I'm correct when I point out and absolutely pummel you that you're about to start detailing something that isn't Coriolis, aren't you, dickhead?
That's because there are two things under discussion. You don't.
No, there's Coriolis effect under discussion. You want there to be two things, but there's only one, Coriolis effect. And if you're going to be detailing it, you are going to be detailing it from the non-inertial spinning reference frame. You're not going to detail what a plane does, because that's not Coriolis, moron.
As usual, when there are more than one thing to understand, you can't...
There's not more than one thing to understand. There's Coriolis effect. You rotating under things. That's it.
No, Coriolis is not rotating under things.
Yes, it is. It's an inertial reference frame over the top of a non-inertial spinning reference frame. You spinning underneath, giving you a not actual deflection. That would mean not deviating in reality, seeming to deviate because you rotate underneath. That is Coriolis effect. Clearly you don't understand what Coriolis effect is, moron.
I would like to explain why a spinning Earth does not cause flight.
What, you're going to assume a spinning Earth and tell us why it doesn't cause Coriolis? So we're going to assume Earth, even though I've told you you're not going to get to beg the question here. You're now going to demand that you're going to get to beg the question. No, fuckwit. You don't get to beg the question here and just say, let's assume Earth's spinning, and I'll justify why we don't have a deflection. Nah, mate, you're supposed to have one if Earth's spinning. You don't, because it would reduce flight times.
When you say that flight time should be changed, you are assuming a rotating Earth. So
I'm saying we haven't got a rotating Earth because we'd have shortened flight times. I'm saying we are proving Earth isn't spinning because the flight times are not reduced. I'm not assuming a spinning Earth, you moron.
Exactly, you're imagining a spinning Earth.
No, I'm not. I'm saying if it was spinning, we'd have deflection. And if we had deflection, Earth would be rotating underneath. We don't have Earth rotating underneath. Therefore, we don't have deflection. We don't have a spinning Earth. I'm not imagining it. I'm debunking it.
Yes.
Yes.
I think Rumpus is spinning.
Yeah, you eat your mic for me, bitch. While I shit on your religion. Eat your mic, bitch. That's you, Rumpus. You're my bitch, telling me how right I am. I know I'm right. I know you're constantly detailing what happens in the inertial reference frame, and that's not Coriolis.
You're a twat and a moron, that's what you
are. You enjoy my salty nuts, you fucktard idiot that doesn't understand Coriolis. Yeah? You want to ad hom me when I'm pummeling you and you're telling me I'm right? Yeah, that's not going to go over very well when you've told me I'm right.
You don't have relative velocity, and that's your problem.
A loss? A loss? What? You've just confirmed whenever I point out that you're trying to detail stuff that's not an observation from a spinning reference frame, like what a plane does. You say, that's correct, Nathan.
There are two things going on.
Coriolis was your positive claim.
And you
why
don't
are you
understand
arguing for why is
now it's you don't understand. I don't understand. Yeah, I do. Not only do I understand when I've confirmed what you're not doing, which is detailing Coriolis, you tell me I'm correct.
I'm happy to detail Coriolis, but
I've detailed it. Non-inertial spinning reference frame with something in an inertial reference frame seeming to deviate. End of explanation. Done.
No, you don't understand Coriolis.
Yeah, I do. That's the explanation. That's what you require. 15 degrees claim of Earth turning underneath. That's Earth turning underneath, shit for brains. I do understand. Your ad hom won't change the fact that you've already confirmed 3 times how right I am. I know I'm right. I also know where you're lying to my audience when you start detailing what's happening to things in the inertial reference frame when that's not Coriolis.
The only thing you got correct is my train analogy wasn't anything to do with Coriolis, and that is...
So why the fuck did you give it then? So the amount of times we've spent with you here telling us about what happens to a guy on a train, and yet that's nothing to do with Coriolis. The amount of times you've argued that point here, dickhead, and yet it's nothing to do with Coriolis.
Because my train...
Because your train's nothing to do with Coriolis!
Because my train analogy...
It's got nothing to do with Coriolis.
The flight time problem you have...
Nothing to do with Coriolis either. Observation from a spinning platform. So what the plane does and how it does it isn't Coriolis!
On a rotating reference frame, flight times would not be affected.
Oh, really? So you think that you take off from a spinning roundabout and then you land on a different part of the roundabout, it hasn't affected your journey on the roundabout.
You more.
Yeah, you eat it for me, bitch. Eat that mic for me, bitch. I love destroying the fact that you don't spin. I love it when you eat your mic. It tells me that you're a bitch.
It seems like the real thing that's spinning here is
rotating
Rumpus.
object. It doesn't make any difference to flight times.
Yeah, it does. So if I'm flying from point A to point B on a roundabout with a drone, and I fly on the roundabout when it's not spinning, and I travel 2 meters to the next point on the roundabout, the next section on the roundabout, that will take 3 seconds. If I spin the roundabout, it might take 1.5 seconds because the roundabout spun underneath the drone, shortening the drone's flight time. If we have Coriolis effect, that would be an observed, not actual deflection because we're spinning underneath something, like a plane, then we're spinning underneath it. And if we're spinning underneath it, the continent that plane's travelling to is coming towards it, debunking Earth turn. Because if we've got Coriolis, Earth is turning under planes, your ipsy-dixit hand wave's not going to cut it, retard.
You don't understand relative...
That's just an ad hom. I do understand. I've detailed it about 6 times to you here, while you tell me about how your examples aren't Coriolis!
The plane leaves the ground.
Don't tell me what the plane does. The observation from a non-inertial spinning reference frame has got nothing to do with what the plane does. Don't you understand? I've said it about 10 times. Are you retarded? Coriolis, Rumpus, is an observational-based effect. What the plane does isn't an observation of the plane. Idiot.
You said the plane would have a problem.
Yeah, it would if Earth was rotating underneath. That's what debunks Earth turn.
But on a rotating, it wouldn't make any difference.
On a rotating platform, if you take off in a drone, I've just explained this, no acknowledgement from Rumpus. If I take off on a roundabout that's not spinning, and I travel from one side of the roundabout to the other side of the roundabout in 5 seconds. So I launch, I move the stick forward, I travel to the next section on the roundabout and then land. That could take 1 second. Now, if I spin the roundabout, it might take 0.5 seconds because the roundabout has added to the speed because it has rotated underneath the drone, shortening the flight of the drone through the inertial reference frame because the non-inertial reference frame has turned underneath. So it would reduce flight times. It's just an ipsy-dixit fallacy.
The plane leaving the roundabout would have the velocity of the edge of the roundabout.
No, it wouldn't. That's angular retention of velocity. That's not Coriolis effect. It doesn't retain velocity. It leaves it if you're having Coriolis effect. Separate reference frames. Not one reference frame with all the same angular velocity. That wouldn't give you Coriolis effect either. You need 2 reference frames, you retard.
Jump out. Train, you'd have the velocity of the train.
Even if it was just a helicopter just hovering, Rumpus, you would still have Coriolis effect if the Earth is spinning underneath it. So it doesn't matter about your stupid velocity.
He said angular velocity, so the plane leaving, because angular velocity is measured revolutions. So the plane leaves the reference frames, it's still rotating.
When you have a helicopter that's hovering, the helicopter is travelling at 1,000 miles an hour at the equator.
No, it isn't. That's begging the question. Don't beg the question here. Don't just tell me that the bloody helicopter's moving at 1,000 miles an hour with a spinning Earth on the equator. Don't beg the question, retard.
It's a fact.
No, it's not a fact. It's a begging the question fallacy. If Earth was rotating and we had Coriolis effect, that would be me rotating underneath the aeroplane. Then Earth is rotating under planes and shortening flight times. That's what Coriolis effect is. Simple.
What's his evidence for Earth rotation? He says it's a fact. What's his evidence?
If a plane is travelling at 500 miles
I don't care what the plane's doing. That's not Coriolis effect. I keep telling you. Stop detailing what the plane is doing. If you've got a claim that proves Earth spins, it's going to be in the form of Coriolis deviation. That's an observation from a non-inertial spinning reference frame. Not what the plane's doing.
A plane that's travelling at...
Stop telling me what the plane's doing. Am I going to tell you 25 times that this magic trick ceased to work now, thanks to Zanuck? You can pat Zanuck on the back. Because Zanuck was the one that led me to realise that no, we're never going to be detailing what the projectile does if we're detailing not actual deflection from a non-inertial spinning reference frame. Because you could detail it with a lamppost concreted into the ground. The force that you claim is being applied to this plane is non-existent because there isn't one. It's not a force. So we don't need to worry about the projectile, only about the observation from the spinning reference frame. You idiot. You don't understand Coriolis. You keep detailing what planes do.
Under the aeroplane,
you keep detailing what planes do. And now you're telling me that because I'm detailing what would debunk the claim of Coriolis, that suddenly I can't talk about planes. I can talk about planes because it debunks Earth turn. You can't because that's not Coriolis effect. The causes of Coriolis effect would shorten flight times. And you're detailing something that isn't anything to do with Coriolis when you detail a plane in the inertial reference frame. That's not an observation from the spinning reference frame. That's not Coriolis, as you've conceded, like your man on a train. So I'm not going to talk about it because it's not Coriolis.
You're getting smashed.
It's got nothing to do with Coriolis either, you twat.
Yeah, it's something to do with the causes, though, isn't it? If you had a Coriolis effect, as is claimed on a ball Earth that spins, Earth's rotating under planes, shortening flight times, and it doesn't happen. That's not me begging the question. That's me debunking a claim of Earth spinning and having Coriolis effect because Earth's rotating under planes. It isn't. It would reduce the flight times.
You keep on saying that the Earth is rotating.
Can I ask
No, I
you one
don't.
question?
Earth is not. I don't keep saying Earth's rotating under planes. Earth is definitely not rotating under planes because it would shorten flight times. That's not begging the question. It's pointing out unequivocally how Earth is not rotating under planes. Rumpus needs a little ham-handed segue into begging the question by claiming I'm claiming planes have the Earth rotating underneath. No, definitely not. That would reduce flight times.
No, it wouldn't. If you imagine...
Yeah, it would. I've just explained it with a drone. Helicopter, it takes off the roundabout, moves across the roundabout without it spinning. It takes a fixed duration of, say, 3 seconds. You spin the roundabout underneath. It shortens the distance, shortens the time, reduces the flight time from one section to the other. Exactly the same thing that would happen on a spinning ball Earth. If I take off in a helicopter and just hover, I don't move at any relative miles per hour to my inertial reference frame. I'm static. I'm not moving. But the Earth rotates underneath, that will give you a flight time when you didn't even have one because you didn't have a mile per hour in the inertial reference frame. Merely Earth rotating underneath, bringing a different destination to you. So if Earth's rotating underneath, it shortens flight times. Your hand wave won't cut it.
Well, let me explain. A drone attached to a roundabout will go at the velocity of the roundabout.
And when it's not attached, it won't. Well, planes aren't attached to spinning roundabouts. When they leave them, they're not attached anymore. Therefore, if Earth was spinning, Earth would be spinning under planes, and it doesn't.
When planes leave the tarmac...
Stop talking about what planes do. You're talking about a projectile. If you're going to detail Coriolis effect to prove Earth spins, you're damn well going to be talking about what happens from the observation point, not from the point of view of the plane.
You just said on a rotating Earth, when it leaves the rotating Earth, it would lose that velocity. It doesn't. It keeps the velocity of the rotating Earth.
What's that got to do with Coriolis effect?
Because it's got nothing... Indeed, because there are two...
So there's nothing to do with... Indeed, nothing to do with Coriolis effect.
I heard it, Rumpus.
Yeah, flight times have got...
Yeah, eat it. Eat that mic, you bitch. Eat it. Every time I teabag you, you eat your mic. It's a tell.
Flight times have nothing to do with the Coriolis effect.
That's correct. Flight times have got nothing to do with the Coriolis effect. However, if you were to observe Coriolis effect in an aeroplane, that would imply Earth was rotating underneath and it would shorten the flight times.
No, it wouldn't.
Yeah, it would. Eat it. Eat that mic, bitch. Yeah, it would. Yeah, it would. Because Earth is rotating underneath something. Simple.
No, it isn't. That's the relative velocity.
Sorry, Earth isn't rotating underneath, so we don't have Coriolis effect then.
We do have Coriolis effect.
Well, then Earth would be rotating underneath. That's what you need for Coriolis effect. You're double speaking. You seem to be saying Earth isn't and Earth is rotating underneath.
There are two issues. One is the
No, there's only one. The fact that Earth isn't rotating underneath, shortening flight times. That's the only issue. You yet to address it. Other than saying, no, it wouldn't.
Well, you won't let me answer. You don't get me all...
You did answer. You said no, it wouldn't. I point out how it would reduce flight times, and your answer to that isn't an explanation of how it wouldn't, because it would. It must, because that's the effect you get if you've got Coriolis. The only reason you see a curve in the plane is because Earth's rotating underneath it, according to the Ball Earth claim. And if Earth's rotating underneath it for you to see an apparent deflection, that would be Coriolis effect, something that you're not going to be detailing if you describe what the plane's doing. If you've got it curving because you're rotating underneath, then you're rotating underneath, shortening flight times.
Coriolis has nothing to do with flight times.
No, but the curved path that you would observe from the ground would imply that Earth is rotating underneath the plane to give you what you see in the form of a curved trajectory that isn't actually curved, it's merely Earth rotating underneath, and that would shorten flight times.
When a plane is doing 500 miles...
Stop telling me what a plane's doing at 500 miles an hour. Start by telling me about what happens from the observation on the non-inertial reference frame, the spinning Earth that you claim. So you're going to start your claim with, from the non-inertial spinning reference frame, I will observe this Coriolis deviation to prove Earth spins. Not from the inertial plane of reference, on the plane where no Coriolis effect can be detected, experienced, or ever detailed ever. That's not how you're going to start your claim of proof of Earth spins, which is Coriolis, because you're not going to detail it from the plane. That can't happen. If you're going to keep doing it, I'm going to kick you out, because you're not detailing Coriolis. That's what you need to prove Earth spins. Coriolis deflection. So I'm not going to listen to what you detail from a position that won't give you that. That's the inertial reference frame the plane is in.
From the ground. That's exactly what I was doing.
When the plane takes off, you're telling me what's happening from an observation from the ground. No, you're not. You're telling me what happens to the plane when it takes off.
No, I wasn't. I was.
Yeah, you were. You were telling me what happens to the plane when it takes off. That's not an observation. That's what happens to the projectile. Nothing to do with Coriolis.
From the perspective of the ground, you moron.
Oh, from the perspective of the ground, when the plane takes off, does it take a curved trajectory because the Earth's rotating underneath the plane?
Right, from the ground.
Right! No, it doesn't. I've never experienced that. That's never happened ever. And if it did, the flight times would be reduced. Why'd you keep saying right? So you think Earth's rotating under planes, Rumpus?
From the ground, the movement between the aeroplane and the Earth, which you call the Earth rotating underneath, or you say...
I don't call it that. Earth isn't rotating underneath. That would reduce flight times. Why'd you keep saying that I'm asserting this as a positive claim? Do you think this little burden of proof reversal fallacy is going to work on me? I'm not claiming Earth spinning underneath planes. I'm claiming it definitely isn't.
Appreciate that, but...
Oh, do you? Good. Welcome to non-rotating Earth. You don't have Coriolis effect. Earth's not rotating under planes. Flight times would be reduced if it was.
That's right. You're making the...
Yes, right. So a concession. You appreciate that Earth rotating underneath planes would reduce flight times then. Absolutely necessitated. Absolutely does not happen.
You are making the claim that on a rotating Earth...
No, I'm not making a claim on a rotating Earth ever. No. We don't have a rotating Earth because planes would have their flight times reduced. Ergo, we don't have a rotating Earth. I'm not claiming Earth's rotating. That's the third time you've used this shitty burden of proof reversal fallacy on me. It's not gonna work, dickhead.
You don't let me finish the sentence.
You've told me that I'm claiming something. That I'm claiming Earth's rotating? No. I'm disproving that. Not claiming it, you stupid shithead.
I never said you did, you twat.
Yeah, you did. You said it 30 seconds ago. You keep telling me Earth's rotating underneath planes. No, I don't. Earth is not rotating under planes. It would shorten flight times. But to have a Coriolis effect on Earth, it must rotate under planes and doesn't because it would shorten flight times if it did.
Yeah, you won't let me finish my sentence.
Oh, so it's just protestations now. Every time I teabag him, he just moans he's not getting the end of his sentence. No, you give us an affirmation. You say things like, yeah, when you should say, no.
You're saying...
No, I'm not.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Right. You're saying that...
Wrong. No, not right. Incorrect. Wrong.
You're saying that...
No, I'm not saying. You're about to tell me about how I'm describing how Earth's rotating under planes. No, I'm not. Earth isn't rotating under planes, so unless you're going to start your disproving Earth turn with... Unless you're going to start like that, this burden of proof reversal fallacy won't work if you try it 10 more times. You stupid shit for brains.
You'll see that I'm trying to do very much
Can,
like that.
can I just
You
ask
are
him
trying
one question?
Go ahead.
Rumpus, in your narrative, is the Earth always spinning?
You are making the. You're saying that
Can you answer the question,
Will
Rumpus,
you
please?
shut up, you stupid tosser?
Yeah, eat it, bitch. Eat it while we
Look how mad you
teabag
are.
you. Oh, I love it. I love it. Oh, is it painful, Rumpus? Do you need to eat your mic because we're destroying your religion? Do you need to eat your mic? Ah, how sweet. Yeah, your religion's dying, mate. You'd need Earth rotating underneath planes for Coriolis Effect to be real. And that would shorten flight times. Now eat your mic for me, you little fundy bitch. I love it.
Engage with me is to mute
Yeah, eat
me.
it. Eat it, bitch. Eat it.
To disprove the Earth rotating is.
Yeah, we did
I
disprove
didn't
the
think
Earth
that was a
rotating.
hard question, Rumpus. I just asked you, in your narrative, is the Earth always spinning?
The case if the Earth were rotating. You don't understand that's an invalid argument.
Yeah, we know Earth's not rotating. We realise. We know it's not rotating because it would shorten flight times if we were to observe a Coriolis deviation.
Rotating Earth does not cause a reduction.
So why are you begging the question? Why are you telling us that Earth is rotating as the starting of your statement? That's a begging the question fallacy. Same shit 5 times in a row.
You talking about, I say if the Earth was flat, I then
Yeah,
say
if the Earth was spinning is a begging the question fallacy, you stupid shithead. Do you think by saying, if I detail a flat Earth with the same fallacy... No. I'm not going to let you get away from begging the question, idiot.
you don't have to make a proposal. You imagine the scenario.
Oh, I imagine it, do I? If you think you haven't tried that 6 times already by telling me I've got to imagine you're begging the question fallacy. Do you think I'm stupid? No, idiot. You're not going to get to beg the question here. You stupid shit for brains, fundy religitard moron who keeps detailing things that aren't Coriolis Effect and claiming I'm claiming Earth spinning with a burden of proof reversal fallacy. You're just a moron.
Nathan, I absolutely don't want to be white knighting here, but I think that what Rumpus is really trying to say is that if the Earth were rotating, you wouldn't have Coriolis Effect. I think that is really what he's trying to say isn't possible.
I see. Well, while that's fascinating, you'd need Coriolis Effect because that's what they claim proves Earth spinning. So without it, they don't have a proof Earth spinning. To justify it by saying, well, I claim we do have Coriolis Effect, but no deviation. That's the antithesis of Coriolis Effect now, isn't it? Yes, Nathan, that's right.
I was hoping to hear a Rumpus confirmation or a disapproval.
Rumpus came on saying the Earth is rotating. Chocolate asked him, is it rotating all the time? And Rumpus says that's an invalid argument.
Yeah, I got that.
Apparently.
You twat. Who said that twat?
I'm a twat. You're
Right,
the
so
twat.
the way you deal with ideas is you propose an idea and if you can invalidate the idea.
Is the Earth always spinning, Rumpus?
Of course it is. Of course it is.
Oh,
what's the effect of that, Rumpus?
Well, it's actually quite difficult to find. There are about 10 ways you can find out that the Earth rotating. One of them,
the Earth is spinning, but it's difficult to find.
2 is the Coriolis Effect. Hold on, I'm trying to.
So is the Coriolis Effect one of those proofs or not? Is Coriolis Effect going to give you a proof Earth spinning?
Ask the question I'd like to answer. So there are other ways, for instance, the Doppler effect on the microwave background radiation, the Doppler effect on stars.
Cosmic microwave background.
And hold on, the Coriolis effect on shells, and also the Coriolis effect we see on the moon
you're
system.
full of it. Cosmic microwave background radiation, right? The Doppler effect. What is
you
light?
measure the weight at different latitudes, they will show
What is
different
light?
weights. Also, things do not drop vertically at different latitudes. If you
should
drop
be institutionalized. Does the second law of thermodynamics apply to the Earth?
It will be deviated by the rotation of the Earth. So I've given
Does
about
the second
10
law of
reasons
thermodynamics
there
apply to the Earth?
It's just rhetoric, just chanting, non-stop, filibustering, spewing, scattergunning, everything under the sun.
If the Earth's spinning, right, rotating, then Nathan would be correct, wouldn't he, in saying that there would be shorter distances in the flight times because it would cause a wind, and if you were flying
rotates
with the wind,
The wind rotates with the Earth. The atmosphere rotates with the Earth.
So depending on which way you were flying, you'd be upwind or downwind.
Hold on.
Wind rotates
If
with
the wind
so
is
there's no
rotating with
wind.
the Earth, how do you have
No,
Coriolis?
upwind then,
Rumpus?
The atmosphere
I'm saying
rotates
you
with
don't.
the Earth.
That's the whole thing.
Hold up, Rumpus.
So you-
Did you just
every
say the
plane-
wind is rotating with the Earth?
He can't let you ask him a question. He just wants to say the atmosphere is rotating with the Earth 50,000 times over the top of you, so that he doesn't have to listen to anything, and hoping that only his rhetoric will reach the audience, so that they get a nice, heavy, thick dose of spewing, scattergunning rhetoric with no justification or debate taking part in between. So Rumpus isn't interested in listening to your question. He just wants to spew rhetoric over the top of every word everyone says.
Down the aisle in an aeroplane. Either way is just as easy to walk up and down an airplane or in a train.
He's talking about walking up and down an aeroplane. In other words, when I detailed how walking up and down an aeroplane wasn't Coriolis Effect, and he confirmed that that's not Coriolis Effect, he's ignored that and is now detailing it after explaining that Coriolis Effect will prove Earth spins, and then detailing something that I've already debunked earlier, and he's conceded and said I'm right about. Now he's filibustering, constantly talking, not listening to anybody says. I think it's time to kick him out, because he's literally not listening to a word anybody says anymore. He's just filibustering the Discord server from now on, because he's lost.
Right, so as I was saying, you can run up and down a train with equal ease.
You're not listening to anything anybody said, Rumpus. So we've pointed out that walking up and down a train is not an effect of Coriolis. You've also confirmed that's correct.
That is correct. It's nothing to do with...
Yes, so shut the fuck up about trains! Right, it's useless. I'm starting to lose my temper with him. He's kicked out. Somebody remove him from the conversation, because he's not going to take part anymore. When I've debunked his claim that Coriolis is demonstrated with an example that's a man walking up and down a train, he confirms that's absolutely not Coriolis Effect, and then 10 minutes later starts detailing it again. So in other words, he's not listening to any rebuttals that challenge him. Even when he does and confirms that I'm right, he's still going to use the exact same example 20 minutes later.
He's just waiting to speak again once you stop.
No, I've already debunked that walking up and down a train or a plane is not Coriolis Effect. He's confirmed that. But yeah, he still wants to go through it, even though it's been debunked earlier, and he's confirmed it. I even got a concession out of him. But what? Yeah, it's still appropriate to use that example over and over again. No. Bye-bye.
You just say like 2 minutes ago that the wind is spinning with the Earth? Wouldn't that be one reference frame?
That's correct.
Ouch. Then no Coriolis then. Ouch.
Yeah.
You could do this with a little model on the table. You could spin something with a little plane, and you'll see that the continents will come to you.
Absolutely. I'm
Told
done.
you, atmosphere spins with the Earth. Get ready. That's going to come on big.
But then that's the problem with the way
I thought it was
gas
just
behaves,
Zanuck that
right?
used to say that crap. No, apparently it's getting big now.
No, Rumpus been saying that for ever since the beginning, and
Oh,
then
has
I
it?
reduced him to him saying the atmosphere wasn't air.
Oh yeah.
That's how that started?
Yes.
Rumpus. Oh my god. That's a damn shame.
Well, this ain't the first show that he's
you're
stumbled on this Coriolis argument. I remember one. I actually will find it and I'll send it to you, Nathan. It's classic too.
I like that you cut him off. I don't want to hear his.
Has he ever changed his mind or a position?
Yeah, he has.
On any
A
of
lot
this
of
stuff?
times, but he
Because
always he never
remember,
admitted it though.
they used to say that they had a geometric horizon. Apparently, we've never seen the geometric horizon.
Oh yeah, remember things going over curves?
Yeah.
We do have a geometric horizon.
No, we don't have a geometric horizon. We do. We also used to have the whole body of science proving that Earth was a sphere. Now we have the whole body of human knowledge.
Well, he changed his mind on this show just a few minutes ago by bringing up something and then agreeing with you that it isn't anything to do with Coriolis, but he wanted to bring it up to prove Coriolis. I mean, he changed his mind how many times already?
That's why I kicked him out.
Impossible.
That's why I kicked him out. It's like at the point that I've absolutely annihilated and he's conceded that what he's detailing isn't Coriolis. And he's like, yes, you're correct. This isn't Coriolis. Later on in the discussion, well, let's start detailing what happens when a man walks up and down a plane. They're like, no, we've already covered this with the train example. It's exactly the same. But he wants to use the same example to confuse and dilute and obfuscate. That's all he's doing. And it's like, no, when I've pummeled it once, I'm not going to allow you to do it again. What, should I just pummel the same thing with the same exact demolition of it again? But this time probably won't get a concession from him where, no, you're absolutely right. This isn't anything to do with Coriolis effect. But I'm going to argue it whilst talking about Coriolis to claim I'm proving Earth spins with Coriolis.
Yeah, he's basically saying, hey, this thing I'm right now bringing up as an argument has nothing to do with the argument.
Yep.
Thanks, Rumpus.
Yep.
That was what he was doing.
And is unstable in all his ways.
But very effective, wouldn't you agree? Given that now Xanax handed us on a plate the fact that there can never assert anything to happen from the inertial reference frame again, it's only ever an observation from the non-inertial spinning reference frame. Well, the moment anybody like Rumpus did, start saying, well, the plane, when it takes off, I couldn't give a shit. Not Coriolis. Well, yes, that's right, Nathan, It's not Coriolis. Yeah, well, why are you arguing it then? Because you need to obfuscate away from Coriolis because you don't have any on a spinning Earth? Because it's not spinning? Yeah, that's why you need to start talking about what happens to projectiles and planes and trains and single reference frames, because it's not Coriolis and you don't have any. If you did, you'd just point it out. It would just be proving Earth spins, really obviously. But instead, we've got to argue about things that don't prove Coriolis, aren't Coriolis, in an argument about Coriolis.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
With that, I'm going to say another huge, massive, enormous thank you to today's Discord and G Plus panels for making today's after show possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you in the Nathan Oakley Premiering Stream audience for hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, and all that good stuff. Be sure to check out nathanoakley.com and the Flat Earth Debate Forum to keep up to date with the community debate. Another massive thank you to today's G Plus and Discord panel for making the after show possible. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!